We have a question from our friend, DFP Guitar. Oh, by the way, welcome to another edition of Q&A with Coach. This is Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Almost didn't say that, did I? Anyway, DFP Guitar says, I have a totally unrelated question that I hope you can answer in a future video. Well, here is your future video. This is a technique question. And with all the gyms in Shanghai and many of the gyms across the world being closed, including my own, I haven't been fielding a great deal of technique questions because I haven't been able to get on the mats and show you the answers to these questions you've been asking. But I have some pre-recorded footage here. I have some pre-recorded footage that answers your question. So, I'm going to show that to you. So he says, I have noticed that I have absurdly sharp shin bones and was wondering if there are any submissions that involve pressing shin bones into your opponent. Yes! It is called a calf crank. It is a versatile submission. It is awesome. There are many ways to set it up, many ways to finish it. Calf cranks. Look it up. He goes on to say, I have never done submission grappling, but in freestyle wrestling, our 83-year teaches to always exploit the sharp. Do you have an 83-year-old coach? Is that what you're saying? There's a bit of a typo going on here. Well, that's really cool. 83-year-old wrestling coach. That's awesome. In freestyle wrestling, our 83-year-old coach teaches to always exploit the sharp blades of forearms to cross, face, and such to be more effective. Okay, that's cool, yeah. Fight with your skeleton. It's one of the smartest things you could possibly do in a fight. If we fight with our muscles, there's a limit to how strong those are. There is a limit to how long they can last. But if we make frames and wedges with our skeleton, that's so much stronger, so much better. So I was wondering if there is anything similar done with the shin bones in BJJ, catch wrestling, etc. I know there are leg locks which challenge the integrity of an opponent's knee to make them submit, but what about the simple sharp shin bones used to create cutting type pain? Oh yes, the calf crank. So without further ado, let's take a look at some calf cranks. So this is a video that I shot when was this? 5 months ago or so with my student Ali. So we're starting from a half guard. I get a deep underhook, and I'm showing why you might not necessarily want one of those, because he's able to drive my shoulder down to the mat. Instead, I get a shallow underhook, framing on the side of his body with my palm right there, pushing firmly. So when he tries to wrap around with a whizzer and drive my shoulder down to the mat, he's not able to get that grip. I'm posting on the mat, grabbing his wrist. I duck under, and now there's a clear shot to the back. From the back, I've got a bunch of options. Here, I'm going to use a power half Nelson. Drive his head down into the floor. If you can control the head, you can control the body moves. If you pull that off just right, you can get 2 hooks in. That might not be an option, depending on how your opponent reacts to it. But let's take a look. We'll do the same thing. Duck under that arm. Power half, sneak that hook in, and now we've got a nice setup from back mount to finish chokes and things like that. Here I'm going to duck under. I've got 1 hook. I start reaching around there. I get the second hook. This is just the same thing from another angle. I duck under, get that power half Nelson, drive his head to the mat. I drive him down here. You'll notice getting my second hook in is difficult. Notice Ali's right shoulder is on the mat. His left shoulder is on the mat. He's basically halfway out. So I grapevine his right leg. I'm wrapping both legs around there. I clear the shoulder and I set up the twister. It's a neck and spinal lock right there. I duck under, work my way around the back, drive the head down with the power half, roll over to the side. He's too far gone, so I lock up 1 leg instead of trying to get 2 hooks. This allows me to set up the twister, this neck and spinal lock. I apologize since it's kind of dark and we're both wearing black clothes, but check this out right here. I'm using an S-grip high up on the temple to make his head into a better lever as opposed to pulling down on the chin or lower on the face, which would not be a better lever. We want to grab the lever by the extremity. That way we don't have to pull as hard to get the same type of result. So I duck under, I do the same movements as before. Notice I have 1 hook in, wrapped in there. That turns into a grapevine. I lock up my grapevine, and I start to control that arm, feed it under my head. I'm now in position to get the twister. the wrestler's guillotine right there. It's a basic high school wrestling pin, is what that is, but we can use it as a dangerous submission if we follow through. Pay attention to the detail right here. This is how to lock up a grapevine with the feet. I'm going to show that one more time, just focusing on the feet right here. This is one of the more difficult things about this transition, is just locking up the feet the right way. I would recommend rep it out hundreds of times over the course of many days. If you can get that, this is easy. If you fumble trying to get your feet together, yeah, this isn't going to work out for you. The guy's going to squirm away. So anytime there is fine motor movement, rep it out. So again, duck under, the same as before. I reach around there, I grab the foot. I can calf crank him right here. I can push my heel, driving the shin bone into the soft tissue. I don't use this one too often, because he still has a certain measure of control over his body. So I'm going to grab his far side foot. To prevent him from scrambling out, I will pin him on his back. And now finish the calf crank from my back. If he tries to reach for my foot, I can go back to the twister, which I just showed you. Or finish the calf crank right here, driving the sharp edge of the shin into his bone. Now we can go backwards, if you will, set this thing up from back mount. So from back mount, I roll to my side. I switch from 2 hooks to a grapevine on the leg. I grab the other leg, controlling his legs, pinning him on his shoulders. I can get the calf crank, switch to the twister. I can also get a banana split. That's where you stretch the legs apart, twist the hips, get a hip lock right there as well. Really flexible people have a hard time doing that. This time I'm starting in half guard. I switch to quarter guard, reach over to the side, grab his foot, do a roll, and I'm in that same position. He's pinned on his shoulders, and I've got that calf crank right there, with the option to switch to the twister and the option to switch to back mount and finish a rear naked choke. I love this series because it is constantly threatening your opponent. It gives you a bunch of cool options. And when your opponent is on the run, when he's always on the defensive, he's not attacking you. He's working to defend himself. So you got a bunch of great submissions, going from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top, from back mount to the truck, that pin position, if you will. And what's beautiful about it, once you get those grapevines down, once you get those grips down, you can pin your opponent. Why is pinning so important in wrestling? Why do you win a wrestling match when you pin your opponent? I'll tell you. Because in a real fight, pinning the other guy matters. If you have him pinned, he can't do a dang thing to stop you from what you're going to do next. If this was a battlefield and you got some friends with swords and shields and whatnot, and you go out there and you pin one guy, you have your friend, hey, come over here, poke this guy with your spear. All right, boom, done. Moving on. That's one thing, right? But in a one-on-one, hand-to-hand combat situation, why do we pin our opponents? They're not going to be able to punch or kick us if we do that. They can't drop elbows and knees on us if they're pinned. They can't submit us if they're pinned. But what can we do? Whatever the heck we want if they are properly pinned. So it's a goofy-looking, fancy-looking pin, leg riding your opponent, those spladles where you're controlling the legs as opposed to trying to pin the upper body, if you will. But in many ways, it's much easier to pin somebody by controlling their feet and their legs than it is by controlling the upper body. Give it a try. So yeah, calf cranks, beautiful submissions. Do them, learn them, love them. If you got sharp, pointy shins, your training partners will hate you for what you're about to do next to them. Thanks for watching. Now, get out there or get in there, depending on what your situation is with this virus spreading around the world. And train.